Babe Ruth is the most famous name in baseball history.
And in 1933, as in so many other seasons, Babe Ruth was the Sultan of SWAT. He was past his peak, but in the very first All-Star game, he came to bat with one man on.
More than just a player, he became a symbol of greatness, an icon whose name is recognized even by people who have never watched a single pitch. But for all the myths and legends, one question still stands. How good was Babe Ruth actually? Was he simply a larger-than-life figure in a weaker era of baseball? Or was his dominance so complete that it may never be matched again?
Now, Ruth, everything's settled. You got your contract signed now, and everything is okay. I hope you're going to have a very, very successful season.
Before Ruth arrived, the sport was stuck in what's known as the dead ball era. Games were slow, runs were rare, and teams relied on bunts, steals, and sacrifice plays. But Ruth changed all of that. With one swing of the bat, he turned baseball into a sport defined by power, spectacle, and excitement. His impact was so massive that it redefined the very identity of America's pastime. Ruth began his career not as a hitter, but as a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. And not just any pitcher, he was one of the very best in the game. Over 5 seasons, he won 94 games with a 2.28 ERA, and in the postseason, he was nearly untouchable. He set a record with 29 consecutive scoreless innings in World Series play, a mark that stood for over 40 years. If Babe Ruth had retired after his time on the mound, he likely still would have been remembered as one of the greatest pitchers of his generation. But the Red Sox saw what everyone else was beginning to notice. When Ruth hit, he did things nobody else could. His power was unheard of, his swing was electric, and his bat was too valuable to keep out of the lineup. That decision changed baseball forever. In 1919, Ruth hit 29 home runs, when the next closest player in the league hit just 10. The year before, the league leader had hit only 11. Ruth didn't just lead baseball in home runs, he tripled the competition. It was clear the game had never seen anything like him. When Ruth joined the New York Yankees, his career, and the sport itself, entered a new era. In 1920, his first season in pinstripes, Ruth hit 54 home runs. To put that in perspective, no team in the American League hit more than 50. One man had out-homered entire franchises. His slugging percentage that season was .847, still one of the highest marks in baseball history, and his OPS plus of 255 means he was 2.5 times better than the average hitter. And that wasn't a one-off. In 1921, Ruth hit 59 home runs, drove in 168 RBIs, and batted .378. In 1923, he hit .393 with a .545 on-base percentage, winning the league's first-ever MVP award. And in 1927, as the centerpiece of the most feared lineup in history, the Murderers Row Yankees, Ruth broke his own record again, hitting 60 home runs in a single season. That number stood untouched for 34 years. During his prime, Ruth wasn't just leading the league. He was separating himself from the competition in a way almost no athlete in any sport ever has. Between 1920 and 1931, Ruth's numbers looked like video game statistics. His consistency and power were so unmatched that opposing managers admitted there was no strategy for facing him. You just prayed he didn't hit it out. For fans of the 1920s, seeing Babe Ruth step to the plate was like watching magic. Entire stadiums would fall silent the moment he dug in, every eye waiting for what might happen next. When he connected, the sound of the bat meeting the ball was described as a thunderclap. And when the ball sailed into the stands, the eruption of the crowd shook Yankee Stadium like an earthquake. Kids climbed fences just to get a glimpse of him. Vendors would stop selling mid-inning when Ruth was up. Reporters wrote that people didn't just come to baseball games anymore, they came to see Babe Ruth. His presence doubled the Yankees' attendance almost overnight, and it's no coincidence that Yankee Stadium, built in 1923, became known as the house that Ruth built. Ruth knew how to play to his audience. He tipped his cap to fans, cracked jokes with kids, and gave reporters endless sound bites. He wasn't just a player, he was a showman. In a time before television, Ruth gave baseball a sense of drama and theater that made every at-bat feel like an event. Of course, critics today argue that Ruth only dominated because he played in a weaker era. The league was segregated, pitchers weren't throwing 100 miles per hour, and training methods were primitive compared to modern times. But while it's true that Ruth didn't face the full talent pool of baseball, what cannot be ignored is how much he separated himself from everyone in his era. In 1920 and 1921 combined, Ruth hit 113 home runs. The next closest player hit 25. In 1927, when he hit 60, the second highest total in the league was half that. Imagine if today, Aaron Judge hit 70 home runs and the next best player had 35. That's the kind of gap we're talking about. Even advanced analytics confirm it. Ruth's career OPS plus of 182 means he was 82% better than the average hitter over 22 seasons. Nobody since has maintained that level of dominance for that long. Context or not, the numbers prove that Ruth wasn't just ahead of his time, he was ahead of every time. But Babe Ruth's greatness wasn't just statistical, it was cultural. Baseball was in crisis after the 1919 Black Sox scandal, when players conspired to throw the World Series. Fans were losing faith in the game itself. And then Ruth arrived, blasting home runs that captured the imagination of the country. He didn't just save the Yankees, he saved baseball. Ruth became the first true sports celebrity. Newspapers didn't just report his stats, they put him on the front page. Radios interrupted regular programming to announce when he hit another home run. He appeared in movies, endorsed everything from cigars to soda, and became the face of the Roaring Twenties. He wasn't just bigger than baseball, he was bigger than boxing, bigger than football, bigger than sports themselves. And unlike many modern athletes, Ruth embraced it. He signed every autograph, played catch with kids, visited hospitals, and gave himself to the fans in a way few ever had. Stories of him visiting sick children and promising to hit a home run in their honor, then delivering, made him a hero to millions. For everyday people living through the Great Depression, Ruth wasn't just entertainment, he was hope. By the 1930s, Ruth's body began to slow down. He wasn't hitting 60 home runs anymore, but he was still one of the most feared hitters in baseball. Even in decline, he hit 34 home runs in 1934 at the age of 39, a total most players could never dream of. The defining moment of Ruth's later years came in the 1932 World Series against the Chicago Cubs. Heckled relentlessly from the dugout, Ruth supposedly pointed towards center field before blasting a towering home run exactly in that direction. To this day, fans debate whether he actually called his shot. But the truth almost doesn't matter. For fans, it was Babe Ruth in a nutshell. Brash, confident, and unstoppable when it counted. In 1935, Ruth signed with the Boston Braves for one last season. His body was failing him, but he gave fans one final show, hitting 3 home runs in a single game at age 40. Days later, he retired with 714 career home runs, a number so large it seemed untouchable. It would take nearly 40 years before Hank Aaron finally surpassed it. Even after retirement, Ruth remained the face of baseball. In 1947, during Babe Ruth Day at Yankee Stadium, he returned to the field, weakened by cancer, his voice barely audible, but still commanding the love of the crowd. A year later, he passed away at just 53 years old. Over 75,000 fans came to Yankee Stadium to pay their respects, a final reminder of the impact he had on the game and the country. So how good was Babe Ruth actually? The numbers tell one story, the fans tell another, but together they create a legacy that feels almost mythical. He retired with 714 home runs, 2,214 RBIs, a .342 career batting average, and a 1.164 OPS. His career slugging percentage of .690 is still the highest ever. His OPS plus of 182 remains unmatched over such a long career. Even today, with all the advances in training, equipment, and scouting, nobody has consistently separated themselves from the competition the way Ruth did. But Ruth's greatness wasn't just in the numbers. It was in the way he transformed baseball from a slow pastime into America's national obsession. It was in the way he gave hope to fans during the darkest times. And it was in the way his name, more than a century later, still carries the weight of greatness. Prime Babe Ruth wasn't just untouchable, he was mythical. And when we ask how good he actually was, the answer is simple. He was better than anyone had ever seen before, and maybe better than anyone ever will again.